Hello and welcome to There's No Business Like, a podcast where friends and industry colleagues explore topics and interview leaders in our industry of professional theatrical touring.
Welcome back to There's No Business Like. Josh Benson here with my friend, Katie.
Hi, everyone. Katie Traska-Miller with Michigan Maven Creative Associates in Midland, Michigan.
Kevin, do you know your name?
Kevin Maynard coming at you from Tallahassee.
There's some interesting stuff happening right now, oddly, in the state of Michigan. Coming
First
from
interesting thing coming out of that state.
I am offended, Kevin.
And you know, it's coming from a political standpoint. So, Katie, can you fill us in on what's happening right now?
Sure. So just last week, Speaker of the House, Matt Hall, came out with a pretty effusive tax proposal. We don't have a lot of information, so I'm actually just going to read you a quick summary so it's very clear what we're talking about today. So Speaker Hall unveiled a tax plan meant to backfill a budget gap from Governor Gretchen Whitmer's property tax cut proposal, which was just proposed. The Speaker's plan, which would generate approximately $4.7 billion, has been described as targeting quote unquote luxury services and out-of-state visitors. The proposal would apply the state's 6% sales tax to things like limousines, country club memberships, tourist services, golf, private jets, and marinas. Also included in the list of taxable services was the performing arts and newspaper publishing as well. So we want to tax people buying newspapers, and we want to tax people trying to pump more money into the local economy by buying tickets to performing arts events. So this came to my attention through, it was reported in the local news last week. I was deeply disturbed by this and texted the pod squad, and I was like, look at what's happening in Michigan. I will make a footnote here that Speaker Matt Hall was the Republican in the Michigan State House last year that also brought the proposal forward to completely eliminate all state funding for the Michigan Arts and Culture Council, which we were able to advocate for and beat back. And there have been some changes made to how MACC is now funded, but we were able to save Michigan Arts and Culture Council funding last year to the tune of $11 million. So this proposal, there's not a lot of details. I was on a call with a statewide lobbyist that helps support arts and culture programming the other day, and they were like, yeah, we don't know where this came from. We don't know exactly what the proposal is. What's been reported in the news is basically what we know about it.
Essentially, what question this brings is, just like newspapers, are the arts just for rich people? And have the arts as a whole, from a public perspective, become a luxury item that is not an accessible thing?
Yeah, that is the question. Like whether or not it is, whether or not it's become that way. I mean, I think the reality is like, I don't know how you argue against it. In most instances, like the performing arts have become incredibly expensive, and it's hard to say that on some levels, like it's not a luxury. And this is from somebody who, like, I think that it should be accessible to everybody, that I think that everybody should be able to go to the performing arts and do that. But I also realize that as somebody who is programming venues, that there's a certain ticket price that I have to have in order to make the financials of it work. And oftentimes it will outprice a good chunk of folks.
But does that mean that we should be supportive of a tax to make it even more expensive and make it less accessible?
So we should charge the same thing for limousines and country clubs? We don't have a problem with that?
I don't have a problem with that.
I mean, look, I don't either. But what I'm saying is, like, if it's a luxury, I mean, I think it does fall.
The question is the public perception at this point? I mean, we're all inside of the arts, and we all view arts as this thing that everyone should be exposed to. However, what is the actual public perception of it to the common American? And is that what Matt Hall is actually playing to, is the public perception of it, that it is this inaccessible thing? And I also wonder, like, we're a performing arts venue, but we have this weekend, we just had Momix Alice, which is 100% high level performing arts. And then tonight we have a talk from a psychologist about serial killers, which is nearly sold out. And then tomorrow night we have Marlon Wayans doing stand-up comedy. I don't think in Matt Hall's mind the second and third of those three shows fall under performing arts. Those are things that are for the common man. And so where is the line of public perception of inaccessibility? Because, I mean, people see a face that they know from TV that's doing stand-up, that's for everybody, right? But there's a dollar associated with it, but people understand that because it's a famous person coming into town.
Yes, but how many folks are able to afford it? I mean, obviously, like, you're selling tickets to it,
right?
So I mean, and it's selling out. So I mean,
from a capitalistic standpoint, it makes sense to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean it's accessible to everybody. I mean, we try to do price scaling to where our lowest tickets are like 40, 45.
Yeah.
Where does that really land for somebody whenever prices of groceries are going through the roof and where tariffs are being placed onto imports left and right? Where within our current economic status does what formerly would have been accessible is no longer accessible because of extenuating economic circumstances?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm right there with you, and it's part of the reason that I have trouble arguing the luxury side of this.
But it shouldn't. Okay, maybe it is, but for me, this is not a great development for the state of Michigan, because for me, this is actually a tactic of division. Of pitting right versus left, of pitting classes against each other, and trying to frame things as elitist that we have been working so diligently to destigmatize in that way. We talk all the time about accessibility, about how are we making programs free or low cost? How are we diversifying? How are we making what we do more accessible and more friendly? We've been doing that work. This is an attempt to actually undo all of that by you co-opting a word, right? And it's the battle of language, right? There are certain groups that co-opt language all the time and twist it and use it to frame their side. How are we going to respond to that? How are we going to fight back and advocate against things like this? Because it's going to start in Michigan. And now that this language is used to frame performing arts this way, we know that it will spread. So for me, it's a matter of advocating against it, telling the true stories, framing the work that we've been doing to combat this new framing that he's decided to put out there. I haven't seen any reaction from any other state leaders in response to this yet, but lumping, the class fee that you pay for your kid to go to a 6-week acting class or a 6-week, voice class or something in the same category as some of these other items they're putting in this luxury category. Like, educational services should not be a luxury, right? A free or a low cost community festival, buying a $5 ticket to that should not be considered a luxury. There are things that we have done as an industry to really push back on that. And some of those structures we built ourselves, and I understand that, but we've been doing the work of uncoupling that and breaking that down and building it back. This is a tool. What he's doing is a tool to create more division.
Well, I think he's a tool, really.
Right. It's so for me, it comes down to, like, what are we going to do about it and the advocacy around it, and how are we gearing up for this fight? Because if it happens in one state house, it's going to start happening in other state houses around the country.
But the question is, you said, with this tool, Matt Hall, that it's starting there, but did it really start there? Or is this the trickle down of all the language from President Trump's administration and taking over of the Kennedy Center and saying it's this thing that didn't work because of the, of the woke arts aspect that they've been attempting to, this is a terrible term for it, but is this a trickle-down effect of the national leadership of the Republican Party's language and approach towards the arts and wanting to cancel the National Endowment for the Arts and kill whatever they've killed at the Kennedy Center? And is this then them actually falling in line and not actually doing something revolutionary or something new or starting something. This is just them falling in line with the leadership that has been set before them.
I mean, Josh, I can't speak to that in particular. And I don't know. I can't speak to his true motivations. Can I speak to how he shows up in our state legislature and the other public statements he's made and his seeming aversion to anything that is community building? Yes. I also think it's like a really silly economic policy to propose to lump performing arts in with all these other things, because the performing arts actually, or the arts and culture industry in the state of Michigan actually brings in more revenue to the state than multiple other sectors of our economy combined. So if you're going to make it harder for people to participate, and then, that cost burden gets put onto the patron, which means they're coming to less things overall, which means that our organizations are making less money, which means we pay people less, which means people have less money to spend on those exorbitantly priced groceries and other necessities. That is actually a negative total effect on the economy versus a positive effect, which he claims he's going to have by backfilling these other things.
Yeah. I mean, I think
by taxing the arts.
Yeah, it's an interesting tactic, to be honest. I mean, because at its core, like, what are the things that they're really highlighting on taxing? Country clubs, limousines. What were some of the other things on that list?
Newspapers.
Sorry, the eight newspapers being sold.
Golf, private jets, and marinas.
Golf, yeah. So like all of those things. Absolutely. You go like, this is a way to go. That's an absolute, I agree. Like, let's tax that, because, that is essentially in a much smaller scale saying like, yeah, tax the rich, like let them pay for these things. Let's add that luxury tax. Lumping newspapers and performing arts in that, like, that's a tactic. That is like, how do you quiet a voice? That is one way to make it more expensive to quiet that. So like, you make newspapers more expensive. So you don't have a well-informed populace. You make performing arts more expensive because it is, supporting things like
social change.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, drag queens, inclusivity, like it lists anything that you're like, oh, I don't want my children to see this.
Once again, an informed, thoughtful, educated, empathetic public.
Yeah, it's a good tactic. Because it's one of those things like you look at it and you go, yeah, I support a luxury tax on this, but like, wait a second, there's a couple things on here that aren't like the others. Newspapers and performing arts.
But if you're talking to somebody that doesn't attend the performing arts and doesn't know anything about the performing arts, and they think that it is just for the luxury, then that's addressing, you're speaking directly to a base that will support you within it.
Correct. But I do think
while
the other
alienating
aspect,
a base on the other side.
Yeah. But I do think the other thing that I think is interesting that you alluded to and sort of pointed out at the beginning, Josh, is what are people considering performing arts? Because they're like, you could argue like, oh, that's anything in a performing arts center. Does that go to the same thing as an arena? Because they also do sports inside there as well, which would argue is more of a luxury than going to the performing arts. But it's like you said, I mean, is Marlon Wayans, as your example earlier, should that be taxed at this new 6.5% along with MOMIX, or are those separate things? Or is it the same because it's in your building? Because so now you've got a population that's going, wait, like, why did my tickets get, like, what's this extra 6.5% on my Marlon Wayans ticket? It's like, well, you supported this luxury tax.
Yeah,
and
sorry, welcome to the performing arts.
Yep. This is, I mean, so it's like, what do they consider? Like, what does the average person consider performing arts? Because I can tell you in my family, I have people that go, oh, the performing arts isn't for me. And I go, oh, cool. What about that comedian you saw last week? Well, that's an art.
And oh wait, all of the television shows you watch are created by artists that more than likely got their start at their local performing arts center or community center, taking a film class or a drawing class or a painting class or a dance class, right? And all the musicians that you listen to on your streaming services and all them, like everything comes back to our local economies and where people begin their trainings and get their inspiration from. And if you make that more difficult, the ripple effects of that, we can't even quantify at this point in time. So I did want to point out that, like, I did a little bit of research. And again, it's surprising. I know. And I just wanted to know, is this the first instance of this being proposed? I couldn't find out if this is the first instance of this being proposed necessarily, but what I did find that currently any sort of there are several jurisdictions throughout the United States that have entertainment and amusement taxes, but it's really limited. And none of them use this terminology of quote unquote luxury tax. So for instance, Chicago has an amusement tax on live performances, sporting events, and streaming services. And specifically, streaming services would not be included in this luxury tax proposal here in the state of Michigan. Certain municipalities in Pennsylvania, Maryland, Colorado, and Utah impose local amusement or admission taxes. And there's a state level tax apparently in Florida, Kevin. I don't know if you can speak to that. And apparently they have a regulatory tax in Puerto Rico as well that applies to live performing
the
arts.
amusement taxes hit gambling, and they also hit sports.
Yep.
And so,
which clearly, or maybe we don't know. We don't actually know, to your point, what would be included in this luxury tax as live performing arts.
But I mean, the Chicago one brings the arts and theater district in on a level playing field with
Right.
the Chicago Bears and the Chicago Bulls
So
on taxing of every ticketed event.
So if you're going to tax, the tiny little Playhouse at White Lake, put 6% sales tax on their tickets, but not put it on the Detroit Tigers.
I mean, you're not going to make much
nobody's
from the
going
Detroit
there anyway,
Tigers.
so.
Anyway. Who cares about them?
Hey, now.
I mean, Lions have a
Leo.
little bit more of a following just because, they play the Packers and the Bears, but
Yeah. I mean, they used to have Ben Johnson.
Right.
But not anymore,
But again,
so.
for me, it's the point about language and how language is being weaponized in this case. And for me, the larger question is, what are we going to do about it? Right? So what are we going to do about it here in Michigan? What are we going to do about it as this language and this tactic spreads across the country? How are we gearing up on this front to help dispel this and help beat back this story that people are going to want to spin, that all live performing arts are a luxury, when clearly they are not. We know that. So what are we going to do about it?
I think these conversations are how we start.
Yeah.
And
we
continue having these conversations outside of this. Everybody shares this with whoever they can. Have thoughts of your own. Actually think about it. Pick it apart and land on it for yourself.
Yeah. I think, like you said, Katie, language is important. So instead of a luxury tax, I would like to see the performing arts put in the sin tax category with alcohol, sugary drinks, something that is harmful, undesirable, immoral. That's something I can get behind. It makes us sound like just really hardcore, like real badass. And people are still buying cigarettes and booze. This is great.
Agreed.
So there we go. Was it Matt Hall? What's his name? Matt Hall. Make it a sin. That's what I say.
Well, thank you for listening. And we're going to keep conversations like this at the forefront of what we do here. We want to bring what is important in the arts field to you. So keep listening, and we will see you again soon here on There's No Business Like.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening to There's No Business Like. Our producers and hosts are Brian Zelmer, Josh Benson, Kevin Maynard, Katie Miller, and me, Danielle Van Hook. Views expressed in this podcast are ours alone and are not reflective of the organizations we are a part of. Keep up with us at nobusinesslike.com. There you'll find links to all of our episodes and socials. If you like this podcast, give us a like, a follow, a review, or our favorite, a 5-star rating. Oh wait, what was that site? I got it, don't worry. It is nobusinesslike.com. Do I sound out bus-I-ness every time I type it? Yep, sure do. Stay in touch, my friends.
I don't know about you, Kevin, but since signing up for that race in Michigan, I get Michigan race stuff all the time, like the Dirty Mitten.
Oh, yeah. The Dirty Mitten.
I get so many emails from the Dirty Mitten, Katie.
Yeah.
That's a race
That's
organization or a bar?
No, it's just
a
an
race.
OnlyFans. So.
See, I had my graphics, I had my research, I had.
Well, I
How'd
can't
those
do any
graphics
speeches
do?
without graphics. So
Yeah. Did we share those?
No, but this is a graphic I
Oh.
made during the about comparing arts and culture to other sectors of the economy in Michigan last year when we were having the budget fight for MACC. So I wanted to bring my numbers. I brought my numbers to a gunfight.
that's a good way to lose a gunfight. Just saying.
I brought my
Yeah.
stats.
Statistically, I should be safe.
Oh God, they got me.
Oh man,
Math.
didn't make that one.